Welcome to the Choosing Happiness podcast with me, your host, Rüdrani Devi, the Happiness Lady. In these conversations, we will be discussing an uncommon way to find joy in your life with weekly special guests. Did you know you could choose your happy? Won't you come and play and discover how these magical tools could work for you? Let's do this. Well, howdy, y'all. Rüdrani Devi, the Happiness Lady, talking to you from Nashville, Tennessee, my hometown. And, I wrote the book about it, Choosing Happiness, an uncommon way to find joy in your life. And that's why we're doing this podcast, to talk about how you can get your happy on. And I'm super excited for my next Choosing Happiness podcast guest. The crowd goes all in anticipation. Marnie Reasor, which, oh my gosh, you guys, I haven't talked to her in quite a while, but this lady kind of helped save my life. And we'll get into that part of the story later. First, without further ado, please, Marnie Reasor, say hello to the peeps out there in podcast land and tell them a little bit about who you are, what you be, all the things you do, the stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm Marnie. I'm a homeopath practitioner, and I work with women who oftentimes have problems with their hormones. With homeopathy, we look at what's stuck in the body, and instead of looking at where somebody's broken or suppressing symptoms, we just look at these symptoms and the body's talking. It's always giving us evidence of what it needs. So there's going to be something in nature, a plant or a mineral or something like that we can match with someone's symptoms. And when we give that remedy, it flips a switch and brings healing to the body. So that's what I do. It's really exciting work. I'm a homeopath consultant. I'm not a doctor or nurse. I don't diagnose, treat, or cure anything. I just talk to people. I hear about what they need, and I tell them which remedies would help them. And I've been doing it almost 22 years, and it's super exciting. I just love hearing people's stories and seeing how they transform when we just give them this one thing from nature, right? Like, that's all it is. Oh, they look
It's
like
pretty
this.
amazing, y'all. In fact,
I've seen these.
Oh, yeah. Okay. For those of you that are not on, or you're on the other platforms and you can't see, she's holding up, and they look like little tiny pellets. So maybe you want to jump over to YouTube because she's really a very beautiful lady anyway. You might want to just check her out. But they look like, it doesn't look like much of anything, these little pellets. In fact, the first time I saw them, I thought, she's like, you're going to put them under your tongue. You're going to do this many of them, this many times a day. And I'm like, that ain't going to do anything for me.
Exactly.
They tasted a little sweet. Yeah, they were sugary, kind of sweet. And I didn't resist at all. I'm being a little facetious, but I wondered how in the world these little pellets were going to be able to change my life. And we also did drops, these little essences, flower essences, or what kinds? That was what it was.
Cells. No, we didn't use. I love flower essences like Bach flower remedies, but I use plant stem cells, and these are herbal tinctures made from the bud of plants, all the embryonic tissue from a plant. So most herbs are made from the roots and the leaves, but these are made from the bud. So they're 10 times stronger than herbs, and they nourish, detoxify, give you all sorts of minerals, vitamins even. But I use those for hormonal balancing. They can help with sleep or hormones or sinuses, allergies, that sort of thing. So that's mostly what I use. These little homeopathic remedies. You might see them at health food stores, blue bottles. Like, what the heck is this? That's what they do. Yeah.
Right. I got kind of addicted to them. The company that was selling them, and they would have a sale and reach out to me because they knew how easy I was. I'd be like, I better stock up on that one, kind of like that. Well, I do want to tell a little bit of the story about how I even met you. Yeah. Because it's really a miracle, you all. When you're really seeking, you can find that energetic match if you are sincere about finding it. Your body will do whatever it can to find what it needs to create that balance in your life. So it started because my mentor and the founder of Access Consciousness, which is the organization that I facilitate so many classes with, he was doing a class and taking questions, and I snuck this one in. It had nothing to do with what the class was talking about, but I was selfish and I wanted an answer. So I was like, yo, Gary, can I ask you a personal question? And he goes, sure. Because he's a generous being. And I said, I have these allergies and I'm having migraines and I'm having all kinds of things going on with my body. And at this point, no matter what I do, it's not helping. If anything, I'm progressively getting worse. And I'll give you an example. I was taking migraine meds, which I had, I'm this person that didn't believe you had to take all this stuff, but all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm getting these really intense migraines. Um, a friend of mine was giving me her migraine meds, which worked in the beginning. And then when she couldn't supply them anymore, it's like, you're looking for that drug. It's like, I need a fix. I reached out to my doctor at back office and said, I'm having migraines. My friend gave me one of these. Can you prescribe them for me? Sure. 5 refills. I wasn't taking one, Marnie. I was taking like 3
Mm,
with an Advil Super Plus, whatever that is, and drinking copious amounts of coffee just to get up in the morning because my head hurt so bad. I
yeah.
couldn't function. And here I'm supposed to be this holistic therapist. So basically, I posed the question to Gary Douglas, and he says, find a good homeopathist, take some bee pollen, and then he mentioned some other drink, which I forget now. I still have a half a bottle of it in my other refrigerator. It's probably expired. And try that. So I went out and bought the stuff, and texted him a picture. Actually, he told me to take those things, and I texted him a picture, and that's what he said. Find a good homeopathist. I didn't know nobody, y'all. But I reached out to a friend of mine, Miss Lori Ann Jones, who you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe you know her because she
Yeah.
referred you. And
Yep.
she is a massage therapist and does reflexology. She's unbelievable, y'all. And she re- she referred me to you, and I guess I don't remember if I emailed you or called the number, and I was in there like the
Mm,
next day, and then we had this conversation, and you were like, I need a 3-month commitment from you. And I thought, well, my birthday's coming up. This is going to be my birthday present, because I knew I had to commit, sign papers. Here's the check. You know what I'm saying? So we did that. And without me, hogging the whole show here, because that's not what this is about, I'd love to know your take on when you first met me and what path we went down to get me to balance because you were surprised at all the stuff I was taking. I was like, I don't really take anything serious. I mean, I've birth control, I have these migraine meds, I have all this allergy stuff. I take something for, and you were like, oh, adult allergy
mm.
stuff and for skin. And your mouth just dropped because you were like, what? You're on all that? And I went, but it's not like I'm on antidepressants or, Rexalti or, whatever it is. I thought it's not bad. It's just the migraine meds I'm embarrassed about, but I'm going to hand the reins over to you.
Well, I
I come
apologize
into your office and you're like,
if I seem judgmental. I usually try to cover it up
no,
more,
no,
right?
you just look shocked.
Oh, did I? Okay. Because the thing is I have taken medication before I found homeopathy, and even sometimes after homeopathy, I've taken medication because sometimes you just have to survive, right? You just have to get through the day. If you have
Yeah.
migraines, that's really hard. So no judgment. I just see people coming in, they're just doing the best they can. And the doctors just give you what they're trained to do. They don't know any other options. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, was
Well, no, wait a second.
amazed.
I have to say one thing about this beautiful lady. Hold on one second. Just a quick time out. She never judged me. I'm sorry if it sounded like that. And in fact, what was so beautiful about our first conversation is you said to me, you trusted my knowing. You said, I'm not telling you to get off of everything right away. Just what you said. I want we're going to do this gradually. And y'all, it took me a while before my body would let me let go of things. It did. It was probably a month before I let go of the first thing, even though I was doing the homeopathy. So I just want to put that part in there because you were so gracious about that. Because I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me drop everything and then I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
You
So
absolutely
anyway,
cannot do that. The goal is that we get your body really healthy and a vibrant state, and then you talk to your doctor. You slowly decrease things, slowly. Your symptoms are less frequent, less severe. Decrease, decrease, decrease. But a lot of people are just very suppressed, right? They don't understand that allergy medications suppress the body. So if you're taking, let's say, Allegra or something like that, it's suppressing so that pollen doesn't bother you, right? You don't want
Right.
runny nose and watery eyes and sneezing and headache all day, right? So it totally makes sense. But it suppresses your entire immune system. So any virus or bacteria can kind of come in at any time. So yeah, I just see people are they're just doing the best they can. And then I just start asking them questions about how they experience life. And usually the initial visit, I get kind of a baseline of all the symptoms, everything. Do they have headaches, allergies, what their digestion's like, their hormones, just every single system, because everything's related to homeopathy. My specialty is menopause, endometriosis, fibroids, and PMS, right? So people come in with that
Wow.
one thing. But what they don't realize is that if they have these other symptoms, those are going to get better too. So, what I love about homeopathy is you use just one remedy, a remedy made from one item that's going to reset the body. And so when somebody's talking to me, they're telling me what they need. I just have to piece it together to figure out the language they're using. And we can talk more about that. But yeah, if somebody has panic attacks, migraines, frequent bladder infections, and let's say endometriosis and allergies, I'm going to listen to their whole story and then find that one remedy that's going to reset their body and bring it to balance. So then they don't have to take valerian for anxiety and feverfew for migraines and cramp bark for their cramps and a bunch of, and I'm totally fine with supplements and that sort of thing. But I think we can be more efficient, right? So what I really enjoyed talking about you was how vibrant you are and how honest and just open, and you just shared everything. Sometimes people are very suppressed and they hide stuff, and it can be
Mm.
really hard to get what we call the vital expression, right? Like what's going on because they're so suppressed. But no, you just shared and you're open, and I'm just following the energy. So why I just listen, and I listen to phrases. So I want to hear, um, like what's going on. How do you experience the world? What kind of sensations do you have in your body? I'm looking for this deep energy pattern, right? So what's your point of view? You
Yeah.
talk a
You're
lot
so
in your
sweet.
fantastic book. What is your point of view? The point of view is very important because people will get stuck in their point of view. And your book is all about how to shift that. Like you can change your thoughts, you can change your mind, you can change your reality. And I like to say with the remedy, you can reframe your point of view. It can make it easier. Like there were times when I was
Yeah.
really depressed and I would take my homeopathic remedy, and the next day I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I feel great. And da 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 da. It would completely reframe me. The remedy would basically. Before that, it would take a lot of effort to think positively. But sometimes with the right remedy, it'll just shift it. So I'm looking for this deep
Yeah.
energy
That's
pattern, and everyone has one. Um, and how do they compensate, right? Like we have survival mechanisms, right? You share in your book about your traumatic childhood and even teenage years, right? So you had to compensate in a way. I did too, to survive. And then that's just how I lived for a long time, was survival mode. And then with homeopathy, I had remedies that matched that. And then over time, my remedy shifted and changed because I wasn't having to compensate anymore. I became really healthy. And then my true state
wow.
actually emerged after a couple of years with homeopathy. I'm now more in my true state, who I was before all the trauma happened, who I was born to be, who I was at age 3 before I got kind of smacked down, right? So we're looking for that shift in
For
every
age three.
girl.
Oh my God.
3. Like, who were you at age 3? You must
But
have
it's,
been such a cute little girl,
oh,
like just So we're
I
just
get
looking.
it, you guys. I mean, how many of you, being you, and as a child, you do get smacked down because your parents, and I'm sure they're doing it because they want to protect you.
Right,
And then they feed you with all these judgments and all these things. You're supposed to be this good little girl or boy. And so now you're trying to please them and you're doing everything that isn't you to do that.
right,
And we think that that's what we're supposed to do, to be loved and to be nurtured and all this stuff. And yet it's literally taking you out of being you. So I love
exactly.
that you said that piece.
Yeah, these remedies will change.
Wow. And
They'll remove that layer, and then you're free to be you. So people come to me with their physical complaints because that's just how I kind of have to oppose it. But really, my goal is that they're going to have an emotional shift and emotional healing from the remedies. And that's how I find the remedies. by talking to them, by looking at, well, you talk about it in your book, judgment delusions, right? So in homeopathy, it's like, what's the person's core delusion? Like, I'm so ugly and unlovable. No one will ever like me. I've got to put up a wall, right? That's a delusion. I mean, it could be true for somebody, but for most people you meet, they might feel that, but you would never guess that, right? So I'm looking for the core delusion or judgments you talk about, right? And so every remedy has what we call delusions. It does not mean the person's delusional or they're psychotic. It's like homeopathy was started in the 1700s, 1800s. So the delusion is
Oh my God.
their, yeah, it's like what their truth is, what they think is true, but it's not true, right? So I'm looking for someone's delusion, their judgment, and
Implanted,
that's one.
like implanted point of views that they bought as theirs, and right? That's what you're talking about,
Yeah, they
literally.
compensated with it.
Okay.
That's how they stay safe, right? That's how they survive, right? So I'm listening. I loved because you're very vibrant and dynamic. So you went like straight into explaining your state really well. Not everyone's like that. Sometimes it can take a lot of questions, a lot, and that's fine. I'm trained to do
Uh,
that, and I am happy to sit and listen. But you really just went there because you're an energetic being. Like some people live more on the physical level, but Rue, you're really on the energetic level because of the work you do, and I think you're born that way too. So, so I just start listening.
Thank
So
you
what I
for
do is
that.
I,
Have no filter.
huh?
I have no filter, Marnie. So,
That's good. Yeah, the no
and
filter
it's
helps me find the remedy. Absolutely. So I'm just talking like what makes you mad, what stresses you out. Tell me the worst case scenario when you got really mad or when you were sad or when your headache was so bad, right? Someone's going to say, it's like this. Like I use the example. Someone might say, I've got a fiery hot temper. I've got this acid heartburn, and I've got my swollen knee, and it's red and inflamed, right? It's heat, swollen, fiery. They're using words to describe every area of their life. So while someone's talking, I'm just listening to these words and themes, and then I piece it together. And then while they're talking, I'm trying to figure out, does this person need a plant, a mineral, or an animal remedy? Okay. So the plants
Mhm.
they're
I remember
sensitive.
this now.
Do you? Okay, so they react to a situation, and we have all of them in it, right? Do you remember? Did we
No,
talk
no,
about this?
I have to stop. She was so cool about it because she. This is the thing about you, Marnie. You are such in such allowance of my crazy ADD, ADHD, and I'm on the spectrum. And she's like following along with me and reining me back in with no judgment and all the stuff. But what I loved is, see, when I know something's true for me, my body kind of expands. It does this.
Ah,
We want to go to
yeah,
that. And then when
yeah,
it true for me, it goes, so she would be like, okay, so you would give it to me, and I'd be like, yeah, that one's not reading. And you'd go, okay, well, let's go over here. How about this? Okay, that's reading. And it was
yeah.
so cool because you were willing to allow me to go with my body's knowing, you know? And I hadn't been able to find any answers. When I got your name, I knew I needed to go to you because my body's smarter than I am, obviously. But you were so willing, and I really appreciated, and I just want to acknowledge that in you, that you are this being that just you have full allowance, you don't have any judgment, you're in that space of, okay, she requires it to be this way. So I felt like we were in a partnership with my
Hmm.
healing, right out of the gate, right out of the gate.
Oh, good.
So
I'm
I'm
so
gonna
glad. Well,
shut my
it's fun for you because I could just like, how does this energetically feel for you? Most people, they don't know. They're like, what? I don't know. So I usually check it. I ask my intuition, like, does this person need this or that or whatever? But for you, I could just say, yeah, how about this or this? And how about potency? You know, what does your body feel? Because you could
right.
energetically, with access work, you could really feel, oh, that's light, or no, that's heavy, or oh, that's expansive, or no, that's contractive. So, yeah.
Well,
So
those
everyone,
little pellets have consciousness. Yeah,
oh my gosh,
those little
yes,
pellets have consciousness.
they
All
have
I had to do was lean into the energy of them.
You can feel them. Yeah, I forgot to explain
Yeah.
how they're made. The remedies are very diluted, right? So I use the example of like aloe. Okay, so if you had an aloe plant, like you could take aloe vera liquid, that would be fine, right, for digestive complaints. But if you wanted a homeopathic remedy made from aloe, here's what it would be. It'd be, let's say you had a small, like a 1 ounce bottle of aloe, and you put 1 drop of that in a 99 drops of water. And then these are homeopathic pharmacies that make these. Okay, so put 1 drop of aloe, 99 drops of water in a tube. They shake it 99 times. That's called succussing. It makes it energetically more vibrant. 1 drop of that into another 99 drops. Shake it 100 times. 1 drop. They do that 1,000 times. And then that last liquid water, they spray on sugar pellets. Okay. So these pellets are made of sugar, and
That's
then they spray it
the
on.
machine. That little
Oh,
machine you had, is that what that was?
yeah, but that's different, and we'll talk about that later.
Oh,
But yeah, these are the pharmacies. Yeah. So the pharmacies, that's how they make them. They just dilute them. So they're diluted thousands of times and then sprayed on the pellets, right? So even if it's a toxic substance like belladonna is a really good fever remedy. It's good for earaches and infections and teething and that sort of thing. Belladonna would be toxic if you took it, but it's diluted thousands of times and then you take it in pellet form and it
oh,
matches. If you had overdosed on belladonna, you might have fever and swelling and delusions and all sorts of problems, right? But if you have a belladonna fever, you haven't had any belladonna, you're just in that state. You could take belladonna remedy, dilute it hundreds, thousands of times, and then that will reverse it. So anyway, so when
that's
someone's talking,
super.
yeah, they're diluted.
Mhm.
They're not, so they're non-toxic. You can't have a problem. The only problem would be is if you took it over and over again. So that's the thing with homeopathy. My clients take about 2 pellets once a month. Like you hit it, then you're done, right? You don't have to keep taking stuff over and over again. It's very easy. Just take 2 pellets, it resets, and then it wears off. Then you just hit it again. You go up and post
Mhm.
whatever. So when a client's talking to me, I'm listening. Oh, does this person need a plant? Do they need a mineral? They need something made from an animal substance. And so we have all of these in us, and at different times of our lives, a different one will come up. But what does this person need now, right? So plants, they're sensitive. They're all about reacting to situations. And they have these two polarities. They'll talk in opposites. So they use the same words over and over again. And they'll say, oh, but the opposite's this. Like it's this and this, but the opposite's this, right? So there are thousands of plant families, but each plant family they have different sensations. So the Hemimelidae family, that's witch hazel, elm, cannabis, they talk about heavy, compressed, pressing, right? And then the opposite is
Hmm.
expanding, light, floating. So they'll be like, oh, I got this compressed headache, but it's better. And then I feel like I'm expanding. They just automatically talk like that. So it's actually kind of an easy case because once I know they're a plant, then I just have to figure out which sensations they're talking about and then narrow it down. Well, within each family, there might be another 50 remedies, but then I just narrow it down. Then the minerals,
I love you. Plant whisperer. She's a
the
plant
plant
whisperer.
whisperer. Yeah. Tell me the plant you need. So then the minerals,
I love it.
they talk, and sometimes people can be a little bit of a combination of each. And I'm like, okay, that remedy is going to come in later, but what they need right now is this. I have to figure out that minerals, they talk about structure, ability to function. I can't function. I've got a lack of this. I've got too much of this. I have an abundance. It's all based on the periodic table, and people live in different levels on the periodic table. We could talk more about that later if you'd like, but that's a fascinating thing. So everyone has different levels of the periodic table, and then mineral, and then they're not easy to figure out, but I mean at least you can graph them on the periodic table and figure out, oh, they have this. And then each remedy has different physical complaints. So I'm listening to the mental emotional, but each remedy has physical complaints. So I might be differentiating between one, but maybe you're strontium carb and they have that left-sided headache with pressure on the right eye and nausea. Okay, like each
Hmm.
remedy, there are hundreds of different migraine remedies, right? So each remedy has different symptoms for it. And then my favorite are the
Interesting.
animals. So I mostly find a lot of animals because we're mammals, right? We're mammals. So
Sure.
a lot of people need animal remedies. So animals compare themselves to others. Am I weak? Am I strong? How do I stack up? They'll talk a lot about survival issues, fight or flight. And the main thing is someone's doing something to them. like my boss is doing this to me,
Oh,
or something, they're doing something to them. Now, I also want to figure out, is this person a predator or a prey? And some are kind of both, but some are stronger predators, some are small prey. But are they more victimized, or are they more like going after people? And
the victimizer.
the victimizer, or like the birds. Okay, so the bird remedies, sometimes I have these little songbirds. There's, they're kind of basic, taking care of their household. They like to do art and very busy and run around, and just kind of like, I don't know, they're nice people, but they don't do a whole lot. Okay, like they take, that sounds like a judgment, but they take care of their domain. Okay, they take care of their house and that sort of thing. Now the big birds on the periodic table, they're more row 6. They're leaders. So the big birds are like falcon and hawk and eagle and that sort of thing. They are leaders. They see the big picture. They don't squabble among themselves, right? They're just like, they see a big picture of you. Whereas you have chickens and they're kind of like squawking in the chicken house, like all that stuff, right? But the big birds, they're usually loners, but they see kind of the big picture of what's going on. They're gonna have different, sometimes the big birds are the predators, right? The hawks
God,
versus the
yeah,
small
that
birds.
makes sense.
So I'm listening, and they're birds, people who need birds, they need freedom, they feel restricted, that sort of thing. They feel a lot of constraints. So each remedy, each family, you know, within the animal kingdom, there are the birds, the snakes, the insects, the spiders, the sea creatures, the mammals. So within each family, they all have different characteristics. Sometimes it's hard to tell between a mammal and a
Wow.
bird, and you've got to differentiate them. So anyway, it's all just analyzing, what does someone need and what's going to bring them back to who
Mm-hmm.
they are. And it's really based on the theory of like cures like, the law of similars, right? So probably should have explained this, but
Okay.
we're energetic beings. There's something in nature we resonate with, right? So law of nature
Right.
is we match the symptoms of a person with the sensations of the substance in nature can cause, right? So we talked a little bit about belladonna.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say red onion. Let's say you're chopping an onion, you get a runny nose, your eyes tear up, your nose is running, my God, kind of headachy. So let's say you have a cold, hay fever, watery eyes, burning nasal discharge. That could be allium cepa. That could be red onion remedy, could help that cold or hay fever.
Huh.
You haven't been around an onion, but you have symptoms similar to as if you had chopped the onion. Now, there are hundreds of cold
Interesting.
and hay fever ones, but that's an easy one. Now, the person's not
Mm-hmm.
taking pollen. They're not taking, that's not what we do in what we call homeopathy. It's like cures like homeo, similar pathology. Homeopathy is similar pathology, right? So there's isopathy, which is like for like. Like, let's say you take, they call them homeopathic drops, right? But they're like little drops made from maple and elm and sugar tree and, all these different types of pollen, highly diluted. Take those drops. That would be isopathy, because you're matching a little bit of pollen in diluted form. They're homeopathic and they're diluted, but you're taking those to help. And that'll desensitize a little. But with homeopathy, we want to find that true sensation and reverse it, right? So that's what I learned in homeopathy school. So I didn't mention that, but I went to a 4-year homeopathy school in New York, and there are 4 years of clinical training. So homeopathy is very complicated. There's so many different
Mm-hmm.
layers to it, and figuring it out. And
Yeah, you're speaking Greek to probably most of my listeners, but but it's fascinating. It really it
it's
is.
neat, and it's
Because we don't have the terminology that you do, but it's amazing,
different. Yeah, but you can
that
do
and
the homeopathy.
homeopathy, I mean, isn't homeopathy older than what we consider to be, modern
Oh yeah.
um, met all that. Like you gave us a date in the very beginning. I don't remember what it was, but
Oh
I
well,
do know that modern medicine didn't come around until the early 1900s.
that's
So,
right. Yeah,
and you used to have a choice.
old. Yeah, it's based on something that Socrates said, or Hippocrates, sorry, mixed it up. Hippocrates said like cures like, and Hahnemann was a medical doctor in Germany in the 1700s, and he was medical researcher. He'd gotten so fed up. He was a doctor. He got fed up with mercury and bloodletting and all this nonsense. And so he said, I'm just going to translate medical text.
Mhm.
So he ran across Hippocrates, like cures like. Then he started experimenting on himself and taking herbs in mother tincture, and he developed pathology. He said, oh, what if we diluted it and then gave this to people suffering from those ailments? And that's how it was started. So that was 1790s. So yeah, this was been going on 1800s, 1900s. There were homeopathy hospitals in the US, homeopathy medical schools.
My mother, from what I understand, in the 60s or 50s, whenever it was,
Mhm.
you got a choice. You could either go with a medical doctor, or you can go with a homeopath. And
Really?
it's not like that much anymore.
No.
There was a time where you could choose, and then something happened, and I don't want to get into the politics of it,
Hmm.
but it was, all these, gosh, don't want to get in trouble. But basically, these pharmaceutical companies didn't want homeopaths to take over, so they gave a lot of incentives that made people choose. And then, of course, there's a lot of programming that makes you believe that one is better than the other. And I'm not stating that one is better than the other. I love the idea of choice.
Mhm.
And I do want to get into another piece of what came out of me meeting you, which was when I finally was off of everything. And I remember I took a trip with a good friend of mine. We went to Isla Mujeres in an island off of, you fly into Cancun, and then you take a 45-minute ride to this little island. And we hung out at a friend of mine's house right on the water. And I remember I finally muscle tested, which is it's kinesiology, a way to talk to your body to see if you're ready to, be done with all the stuff. And I got off of everything. And I was like, oh, glory, hallelujah. And I hadn't had a migraine in quite a while. But, I think the last thing was the birth control and the adult acne medication, which was a pill form I was taking every day. And so those were the last two things. And I thought, wow, I'm free. I'm actually free. And then all hell broke loose. I don't know if you remember this, but it finally gave my body permission to have PTSD.
Mm.
And it literally, everything that I've been stuffing in my body with all this medication, there was nothing suppressing it anymore. And here I thought I was in high heaven. Got to tell you, I was so happy. And then all of a sudden, it was hell again, only because at that point, because you're the one that turned me on to this book, The Body Keeps a Score,
Mhm.
which you guys, I'll put a link underneath in the show notes. I started to read the book and it gave me PTSD because I went, oh my God, everything this book is talking about is everything I did to suppress my PTSD from childhood, which, I mentioned in my book, the abuse from childhood and even with dating and all that stuff. It was this thing where you do whatever you can to survive and to thrive.
Mhm.
And for me, that was running marathons and lifting weights. I remember, I didn't remember this until she reminded me. I went to a yoga retreat and a complete stranger, which became a friend of mine later, reminded me that I said, yeah, I lift weights because I'm never going to let a man hurt me again. Because my father was abusive and so were the men that I chose because I followed the energy, you only show the love you know kind of thing. I was like, well, the man that bore me and said he loved me, this must be it. He must be able to, it was like I was under the impression that if you married somebody, they had the right to abuse you because that's what I grew up seeing. And that's how I was programmed. So all that suppression was from my childhood because suffice it to say, even with what happened in India, which, I mean, I don't know if you're listening for the first time, you guys, just Google my name, Rüdrani Devi, and you'll get the rest of the story. But I was in a terrorist attack in India. So you would think that would be where the PTSD was, but I had all these access tools and the tools in this book, Choosing Happiness, that got me through that. But what I had not dealt with was the abuse from childhood. So, Marnie, I mean, my goddess, after I got through all of that, do you remember all that PTSD showed up and we had to shift gears?
We shifted the remedy, right? So someone comes in with this remedy, their compensation, right? And then the remedy and symptoms are better and everything's great. And then either the remedy changes or the body's ready to go to the next layer. Or for you, you stop taking the medication. Like the pill is very suppressive for women's emotions. A lot of people don't know that. They know that it suppresses the ovaries, but it also shuts down the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. But also it shuts down feelings, anxiety, depression, that sort of thing. Anyway, so when you got off of those, all this new information came up, and then we retook your case, new remedy popped up. And that's great. We just matched it. That's where we did kind of the energetic exchange. Like, okay, I think it's this, but it could be this one. Like with homeopathy, you can get really close and it'll make a shift. And then it might be the next time, like, oh, I need to fine tune this a little bit, right? So you kind of get in the right ballpark because there are 4,000 different remedies, right? So it's within this family and it's somewhere here. And so that was the fun thing about working with you is like you energetically knew, oh yeah, this one is more. So then we just switched the remedy and then that started de-escalating it, right? You felt more in your body, felt more calm.
Yeah.
And you were doing a lot of other.
I had more symptoms. Remember, I started getting dizziness, and you had emailed me this way to deal with. I forgot it was with my ears.
Oh yeah,
where I had to do their position, and it made it worse because I don't know. I stirred the shit up, I guess, and then I ended up because of that finding another holistic practitioner to help me further.
Yes, because you had a history of head injuries. So at first I thought it was just vertigo.
I
didn't know it was history of trauma to the brain. So then we did a brain injury remedy, and then you worked with another practitioner who did like physical therapy, eye exercises, like getting your nervous system, and that was fantastic, right? So homeopathy helps with a lot of things, but it's not the be all end all, right? Like there are times when you need medication. There are times when
it led me to the next thing.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. And you were so open. You were trying to help me find who could help me. I don't know if it was you that actually had pointed to this type. I can't remember who it was that actually turned me on to it. I thought it might be you. I ended up going to someone who did sacral cranial.
Yeah.
And then I went to Dr. Deering, who is a chiropractor who also does acupuncture and did the eye exercises. And in the beginning, because I had a timer, I was so slow. My response system was so slow. And it was like I was a 90-year-old person is basically what he said. My response system was so slow. And it was because of all that suppression and the PTSD that I couldn't function. I had short-term memory loss, which, by the way, you guys, I still get it if I'm in a state of supreme stress. When I get to the point where I'm repeating myself and I notice it, I'm like, damn, I need to get some acupuncture or something. Because I know that the brain injury is like, oh, there.
It takes time for the brain to heal. Yeah.
But it was beautiful because, it led to the next thing that I required. And I don't know if you guys know this, in full disclosure, I'm working on my 5th book, which has everything to do with what I'm talking about here, about how you can actually get yourself to balance and unwind, or at least be able to deal with the PTSD that is stored in your cellular memory, because this is the reason why you're talking about stories, and we're not delusional, but we come up with these other stories to compensate, and we don't realize that what we're doing is we're continually suppressing these stories into our bodies,
Yeah.
And, what can we do?
Truth, right? Your body thinks it's true, but it's not true. And then that's where we find the remedy, and then the homeopathic remedy be kind of like, no, that's not true. And then you redirect that point of view, and then the body goes to the next layer. It's like, oh, okay, I can let go of that. Like people often say after they take their remedy, oh yeah, the things just roll off my back. My boss is criticizing me. It just doesn't bother me as much anymore. Well, the situation has not changed, but their energy shifted and they don't resonate with that anymore. And I work a lot with PTSD, right? Trauma. We find that what's going on, and then the remedy tones it down. And therapy is really important. There are all sorts of pieces that go into this.
Well, I will say this. I mean, you shifted so easily with me with each layer. I can remember coming in to your office stuttering and having tics when this started to come up. And then we ended up with 3 different remedies through the course of working together, because it was like different layers. Okay, we got over the allergy stuff. And don't get me wrong, you guys, I still have some allergy symptoms, but I don't take anything for it. I have other ways of addressing it now that work for me. And then all of a sudden it was the PTSD thing, the stuttering, the the short-term memory loss, repeating myself, the dizziness, feeling like I had vertigo. I mean, every morning when I would get up, I'd like get up in sections where I'm like holding onto the bed and going here. It became a way of, dealing or compensating, or, okay, I've got to get through this. You guys, I would be sleeping most of the day and night because it was so exhausting.
That was the brain.
So exhausting. I couldn't.
Yeah, the brain injury, they'll be back there. And then when it's time to heal, they'll come up. Like your body will let you know. Or you might have a small accident or bump your head, and then all the past head injuries come up. I can't remember what happened with you, but yeah, that head injuries come up, and it's like, because the body will raise its hand. It's like, okay, attention. Like, now you can't suppress me anymore.
Now's the time.
Now's the time.
I would have said, it was weird because I was like, this is the worst time ever this could come up. And then I just knew that I had to give my body, I had to let my body be the boss of me. And you know what, the biggest takeaway, it makes me want to cry, is now I really listen to my body. I listen to it. If it doesn't want something, I'm like, okay, I feel you. I mean, sometimes I trump my body, but it's rare these days because it's so much smarter than I am. It had been trying to tell me all this stuff for a very long time. And I'm super grateful for Gary Douglas, because I don't even know if I'd be alive today if it hadn't been for him. Because if I had to continue with what I was going through, it was miserable to have constant headaches. And, and I love the outdoors, and yet I'd be outside for 10 minutes and I couldn't breathe. And it led to a lot of things. And you're right, I would get sick all the time. Bronchitis, sinusitis. I took so many things for it and thought it was normal. And the thing is, the takeaway I want you guys to get is, hey, if your body is showing you stuff, you can find balance. That's actually not normal. It's what this reality is trying to give you a quick fix. It's like the drive-through, man. I'm hungry. I'm just going to go to McDonald's. I'm not dissing y'all if you like McDonald's, but the point is, you might make some different choices if you listen to your body. Maybe, wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's
pretty amazing. You heal people.
I had Epstein-Barr. I had chronic mono for 2 years. I could not work. I slept 16 hours a day. My body tanked. I had suppressed everything for so long. I had no boundaries. I was saying yes to everybody. I was working in New York in the art market, and just no boundaries, worked all the time. I got really sick. My immune system was so depleted. I picked up Epstein-Barr, which is chronic mono. I slept for almost 2 years. I was so tired. I was seeing different doctors. There's nothing they could do, but I was getting vitamin IVs and supplements and changed my diet and all that. My body was like, no, you are making a change in your life. Like, I had no choice. I had to quit working, my social life.
How I feel.
But I later found a homeopath and literally explained my situation. He gave me 2 little pellets, a remedy. 3 weeks later, I was out of bed, energetic, felt great, going to Taibo at 8 in the morning, because it woke up my body, right? It didn't suppress the virus. It didn't kill the virus. Like all those antiviral herbs and immune boosting supplements I took, those were great, but they didn't get to the root of it. My problem was I had problems with boundaries, and he found that in my case. I was suppressed, and I was saying yes to everybody, and he matched that with our remedy. And then I took that remedy, felt great, and I started saying no, and people got mad at me because, like, who is this Marnie? Like, people. But the remedy shifted me.
What have you done?
Wake-up call. Yeah, who is this? But that was my wake-up call, and my body just went on strike basically at a very young age. And then that's when I went to homeopathy school after that.
That's what happens. It says enough is enough, and I can't believe you said Taibo. You said you took Taibo.
I know.
I haven't heard know in years. I'm sorry. That's like a beyonds for
I
me.
know,
I
isn't
mean,
it so funny?
90s.
Me who couldn't get up till like 11:30 or 12 every day sleeping. I sleep, I think, 12 hours at night and 4 hours during the day. It was like 16 hours a day. But after
That's
that,
crazy.
I woke up and I felt great and I was going to Tai Bo classes. Yeah. It was such,
Great. Wow.
granted, I had a really good diet. I had good nutrition after 2 years of like sleeping and all these vitamin IVs, but it was the remedy that woke me up because doctors said, well, you need to get used to this and just go on disability because you're going to have this. You have it chronically. You're going to have it for 30 years. Like, just,
Oh, wow.
I was like, no, no,
Don't
no.
you love it when a doctor plants?
It's like, no.
Yeah, they're like, I mean, I was told I would never walk again, Marnie. And I was like, really? Let me show you something.
Yeah.
The thing is, I mean, I would say this, I'm a very relentless person. And working with you, I was like, I have got to get through this,
Yes.
and I'm sometimes I was challenging you, but I was like, girl, I can't do this anymore. Help me.
Yes.
And we were able to get through it.
Tricky. Yeah, it's not an easy path, which I think is why it's important to have a practitioner you're comfortable with. Like the people who have helped me, I'm so grateful to because it was not an easy road, right? Compassion, but then tough love and guidance and that sort of thing. It goes a long way. But yeah, I just love the remedies because they're simple and easy and we just match the energy. And then it's a reset and your body's
Yeah.
like, oh, I know what to do, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally, you know?
Giddy up. I love it. I love it so much. I might have to have you back on the podcast again because there's so much more going on here that meets the eye.
Oh,
If
sure.
you'd be willing to be a guest again. You guys, I want you to lean into the energy of your bodies. You know what I'm talking about because energy is the first language, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll tell you if it needs something different.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll know, you get it when you get it. And I'm so glad to have that you were available and willing to be a guest because I know we haven't spoken really since I went through all of this, which was all before the pandemic,
Right.
which
Yeah.
I was grateful for because I can't imagine going through this and being trapped at home on top of all of it,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
true.
So, well, but before I let you go, this is called the Choosing Happiness podcast. So I just got to throw it out there. And so Marnie Reasor, what do you do to get your happy on? What do you do for you that makes you happy?
You know what? I really love going for walks and listening to books on Audible. Like it makes me so happy to just like walk and see all the greenery and get some fresh air and then escape through these books. I've been listening to these Maisie Dobbs books. It's this British investigative like psychologist who lives in the 1920s. Okay. And it's these right mysteries, but it's fascinating. It's exciting. I love hearing the accents and the stories and the historical drama and figuring out like what happened. And so that gives me a lot of joy. I love doing that. So
Wow.
walking and
Gosh,
listening.
my whole body smiled while you were talking about it.
Oh, really?
I can perceive. Yeah, it's like I'm leaning into the energy of you talking about it. It's like, wow, I want to go take a walk with her. Of course, she'll be listening to the thing, so I won't be able to hear it. But no, that sounds amazing. I love listening to audibles too.
Yeah, because there's so much
You know,
negativity, during the pandemic, I listened to things about health and this and that. And I was like, I'm getting too negative. Like my mind is focusing too much on certain things. I need some sort of escapism, but healthy escapism,
Mhm.
right? And the Maisie Dobbs, they're very wholesome
Yeah.
stories. They're not like grim. They're mysteries, but they're not grim or anything weird like that. And I was like, I just need something kind of light and fun and, lighten things up.
I love it.
What do you do?
I love it. I've been listening. I've been watching. Well, it's weird. It's weird. Lately, I've been really weird. I've been watching Cara Burnett, um, Andy Griffith, and that show used to bug the pee out of me. But it's so it's funny in such a weird way because it's bringing me back to such a simpler time, and it reminds me that none of this stuff. I mean, letting anything bother me doesn't make sense. And then I watch this little town where they get upset about a plant or whatever,
Right, right.
different episodes. And it brings me back to, oh my God, I am so fortunate. So, people are like, you're watching it, and the Golden Girls
Yes.
crack me up,
Yeah.
all the stuff. So for me lately, it's like right before I go to bed, I watch something that makes me smile or makes me laugh.
Uh-huh.
Like sometimes I watch clean stand-up comics,
Uh-huh.
that don't have to rely on being dirty or whatever. And it's so much fun for me. And just so you know, this is on Audible now. Choosing Happiness is
Oh,
now my voice. I did it during the pandemic because I was trying to find things to do.
oh,
So all the
smart.
things.
Great.
So
What's the title of your
yeah.
new book? Do you have a title yet for the new book?
Oh, the new one is called the my fourth book, which is now being paginated and put together,
Uh-huh.
is called The Four Sources of Creation.
Oh,
And it's basically how I create my life. Question, choice, possibility, and contribution. And I interview, it's such an access book because I interview all these CFs, certified facilitators in access consciousness.
mm-hmm.
And I get them on the podcast. And just like with this for my fifth book, this is going to live in the book as a way that you can scan and get to this YouTube conversation where you can see where I extrapolated for the chapter where I talk about homeopathy
cool.
and you. Thank you very much. So that one is, The Four Sources of Creation. And then the working title for the fifth book, which is why this conversation is happening right now, is called PTSD in Me. And it's basically the 3 months, the 3 months of hell I went through to get to the other side, where I found complete joy and, like jumping out of bed, literally, and going to boxing classes at 6 in the morning. I mean, stuff I never dreamed would be possible for me.
Right.
And yet I was willing to actually get through it. I mean, I felt like I was walking through mud sometimes, but I knew I had to keep going because if I didn't, I was going to die. I'm not the kind of person that would commit suicide, honestly, but I knew I couldn't continue living like that. And so it was like, at this point, I've got to do something. It's like anything where the person is like, I've got to give up this addiction or whatever it is, I've got to do whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and I'm using that as just one example, but when you get to that point where something has got to change, and you put it out to the universe, it's like, please, I have to do something. Show me. And then you find something that matches that energy. And you were one of the integral pieces that matched that energy. So I'm so grateful. It's all Gary Douglas's fault because that's where it started. But you were the first person I reached out to. And then subsequently there were 2 others that came along after we started our work together. So I'm forever grateful to you. Seriously. And I would like to have you back on the podcast another time if you're available. We'll just roll with it. Where can people find you, my love?
My website is
If they wanted to find
you. Resplendenthealing.com is my website. And I've got a link that I set up if any of the listeners want to have a discovery session about homeopathy to see if it's a good fit for them, that sort of thing. But it's been such an honor to work with you and so exciting to just see your progression with the remedies and the shifts and change and fun to be on the podcast. So thank you so much for having me today. Always a pleasure to collaborate.
It's my
work together.
Absolutely. And I'm going to make sure all the links are there for my peeps so they can find you. And you guys, I would highly recommend at least doing this assessment. It's just a one call. What is it, like a 40-minute, an hour, 50 minutes?
Yes,
something like that.
About 40 minutes. If you're interested, if homeopathy seems like it's something that resonates with you, we can talk and see if it's something that we think will work well for you, depending on your symptoms and what you're looking for and what your goals are. Because I always just want to make sure it's a good fit. Maybe acupuncture is something you need, or body work, or, whatever it is. I always like to make sure I'm a good fit before I take someone on and be like, all right, let's go. I mean, I never know. Homeopathy works for most people, but you never know. And if there's something that might block them in another modality could work, maybe you need access work, or maybe you need some therapy, or, I don't know. Just see. So yeah, you can click on that link and it's a discounted rate for a discovery session. We just talk about if it's something that might interest you, homeopathy, and then we just go from there. always happy to answer questions. So thank you for having me on today. This was
Did
so
you hear?
fun.
Oh my gosh. And so informative. Thank you so I actually learned a lot more today because I probably wasn't in the headspace to actually hear you half the time you were talking when we were working together. So it's been
Well,
really, really fascinating. And okay, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, when someone's in my office, I'm really just listening to what they say, right? Like, what are the words they're using, right? I don't talk that much or explain what's going on. I'm just what we call the silent observer. I'm just letting them have their space and their energy, and I'm just there to match a remedy, and then it does the rest, right? So I don't talk a whole lot or explain, here's how it is, and this is how it works, or whatever. I'm just like, all right, you tell me. So, yeah, that's why.
Well, I'm happy to have the information now because now my readers, when this book births itself, will have more information. So I'm super grateful for that. And thank you so much for this conversation. So yeah, we'll have all the information for you to find Miss Marnie Reasor. And absolutely. And if you know of others that this conversation could be a contribution, please share this link with them. And if you liked it, there's a subscribe button underneath you could click on. So
Yeah.
maybe do that. And then you'll always know when there's a podcast coming up. And here's another thing. If there's something you would like to know more about, or you have somebody you think would be fun for the podcast, reach out to me and questions, concerns, complaints. I read it all the things. So thank you again. And yeah, until next time, y'all. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thank you so much for choosing happiness. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, share, and give us a like. And if you want more happy, subscribe to the Choosing Happiness membership where you can play directly with me, Rüdrani Devi, the happiness lady. How does it get any better than that?